Coming up on this second hour of American Sunrise, peace through strength, as President Trump has ordered the Department of War to resume testing nuclear weapons, warning that China is on pace to achieve nuclear parity within 5 years. The announcement came on the heels of the president's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. We'll have analysis straight ahead. Plus, President Trump taking aim at the Senate filibuster. 47 calling for congressional Republicans to play their Trump card in the shutdown fight by going for the nuclear option to reopen the government. We'll have the very latest on the shutdown showdown in just a moment. And then later, millions of Americans are at risk of losing federal food benefits. SNAP, which is the country's largest food benefit program, is set to run out of funding tomorrow as a result of the ongoing government shutdown, potentially affecting tens of millions of people. Those stories and so much more right now on this second hour of American Sunrise.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from D.C. Let's bring in Dr. G in West Palm, T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning. You know, I don't even want to say happy Halloween, quite frankly. You know, there's a lot of evil with Halloween and all that. I don't know. It's not my jam. And speaking of evil, I mean, we're seeing something this morning, T. Bates, from the FBI. And once again, I'll let you get to that in a second. But, you know, like fires all over the country sometimes in the past in Detroit. Now, there's always mischief going on Halloween. But I know we got some serious mischief this morning. Good morning, guys.
Well, I will say the mischief has been thwarted in this particular case.
Yes.
Kash Patel out with this ex-post saying this morning the FBI thwarted a potential terrorist attack and arrested multiple subjects in Michigan who were allegedly plotting a violent attack over the Halloween weekend. More details to come, he says, thanks to the men and women of FBI and law enforcement everywhere who are standing guard 24/7 and crushing our mission to defend the homeland. So the good news is that the potential terrorist threat has been thwarted. Several people have been arrested, but still probably having some
Yeah.
Was it Dearborn? Oh, we lost Terrence.
Oh,
David, do you know
Terrence.
if it was Dearborn?
I don't. I'll have to look. I think that's all that Kash Patel put out on it. I'm going to double check that, but that's what I've been scouring this morning. By the way, if you see any more information, folks, in the chat, let us know. But I'll check it out here in a moment. I know we've got some headlines to get to, and we're going to get to T. Bates in a moment, some technical difficulties. But Gina, will move on and just do some headlines, and then we'll...
There
Do
you
we
go.
have Terrence? All
Sounds
right, we
good.
don't. All right, so I'll do it. All right, President Trump here, obviously calling on the U.S. Senate to initiate what he calls the nuclear option. We talked about that at the top of the show. And getting rid of the filibuster in order to bypass Democrats and reopen the government. The filibuster is a long-standing tactic. That's really what it is in the Senate to give the minority party a check and balance on legislation. So overcoming a filibuster requires 60 votes, but doing away with the practice altogether would allow the majority party, the Republicans, to move legislation along a party line vote. So in this case, it would allow the Senate's 53 Republicans to reopen the government. By the way, it's 52 because Rand Paul's not going to vote with them, despite all of these Democrat roadblocks. Meantime, Americans who depend on federal food and assistance through the SNAP program are bracing for the loss of those benefits. Starting tomorrow, food aid is going to stop as a result of the government shutdown and lack of funding for the program. All right, so in other news, Vice President Vance warning that the ongoing government shutdown is setting the stage for a holiday disaster during the upcoming Thanksgiving travel season. That would be a nightmare. While meeting with the heads of American and United Airlines at the White House on Thursday, the vice president emphasized that 13,000 air traffic controllers, 50,000 transportation safety administration agents are being forced to work without a paycheck.
I don't think Americans should be afraid to fly because we've got great airline professionals who are keeping the safest aviation industry in the world afloat, but they're doing it with incredible stress. What I worry more about is that if you have, let's say, a pilot who's now missed 2 paychecks, who's now telling his kids that they can't do things that they'd like to do, who's now worried about feeding his family, maybe that guy doesn't show up to work, maybe goes and gets a different job. That means greater delays for the American people. I worry about the air traffic controller who now has missed 2 paychecks, who's got to pay his credit card bill or his mortgage, but can't pay both, and decides, you know what, this industry is not for me.
That's a great point. While flight delays and cancellations have been negligible so far, airline industry leaders expect that change, or that will change in the coming days and weeks. They're also encouraging Senate Democrats to vote for a clean CR in order to reopen the government so that airline workers can get their paychecks and focus on keeping the country's airways safe. All right, now to news from across the pond. We've got King Charles. Well, he has stripped his younger brother, Prince Andrew, of all of his titles and kicked him out of his royal home. The 65-year-old former prince is being punished over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Earlier this month, he was even forced to stop using his title of Duke of York. Now, the disgraced royal is simply known as Andy. No, he's known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. So in a statement, Buckingham Palace writes this: these censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. So Andrew will move now from his current royal estate to a private residence in eastern England. He's out. However, he'll reportedly continue to be financially supported by his older brother, King Charles. All right, time to get a weather hit, if you will. In our last hour, we had asked you to head over to the Real America's Voice chats on Getter and Rumble and YouTube and all that to be chosen to get your hometown forecast live. And of course, you can do that with a quick photo of the QR code on your screen. And here with the results is Weather Nation meteorologist Brittany Lockley. Brittany, what do you think? Good morning to you. Who gets some forecasts today? Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Now that forecast, we're going to have to bring it to you probably next week. We were having some difficulty, but I have that Halloween forecast for you. And for you, I have the countdown for the fall because you said, hey, I'm over Halloween. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're 2 days away from daylight saving, so you get some extra hours of sleep. How about 27 days away from Thanksgiving and 55 days away from Christmas? But here at Weather Nation, we're going to give you that trick-or-treat forecast because we have some bone-chilling temperatures up in the north central. And how about some spooky sprinkles down into areas like Oklahoma? Relatively dry for the southeast. It's going to be quiet, but we do have that area of low pressure bringing some heavy rain to the northeast. That's going to be moving up towards the north. And we have our next system that's going to be pushing in towards the northwest, bringing some pretty heavy rainfall down towards Seattle. So we're going to be checking in on that forecast. The high temperatures for today in the 30s. If you're in Bismarck, 39 degrees. That's pretty chilly. How about Los Angeles? Nice, 80 degrees. The Dodgers are going to be in Toronto, though, and those temperatures are going to be in the 40s. Down in Miami, you're sitting at a lovely 79 degrees for today. Your trick-or-treat forecast, if you are taking the little ones out, it is going to be quite chilly across the nation. We're talking about 60s for the south, up towards the north, temperatures in the 30s and the 40s. And as we get into deeper into the nighttime for the older kids out there, they're still going to be dealing with some of the 30s and the 40s out there. But thank you so much. I hope to see you again. Meteorologist Tracy Anthony will be back on Monday.
Brittany, we really appreciate it. Thanks so very much for all of that. All right. By the way, for all of you watching right now, you see right down there, there's the QR code. You got that. Just scan it and you can join the Weather Nation family and get your hometown forecast and all of that. All right, Gina, over to you.
All right. Well, President Trump is waking up in Washington, D.C. this morning after a long diplomatic trip through Asia this past week. Yesterday, the president announced he's reached agreements on tariffs and trade with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and now the president has ordered the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons in what appears to be a message sent directly to China and Russia. Here was the president on Wednesday.
It had to do with others. They seem to all be nuclear testing. We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. You know, we've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
Any details around the testing, sir? Like where, when?
It'll be announced. You know, we have test sites. It'll be announced.
Joining us now with analysis, RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn. Brian, good morning. Brian, you know, this sounds scary, but is it scary? Should this be alarming, or is it more scary that we weren't doing the testing before?
Well, good morning. I think it should be a little scary, but it's been about 33 years since the U.S. government has done any type of testing, which, by the way, the only site right now, from what I've read, is outside Las Vegas, Nevada. That is the only test site that's capable of having what they plan to go through. This is very expensive as well. It's about $140 million per test. So this would take years to prepare for, of course, tax dollars to pay for. But I think it does send a message to China, to Russia, and also to Iran. I noticed Iran even popped up in the last day or so, calling out the hypocrisy of us doing testing versus them doing testing, which that's completely different subject. But it does send a message to our adversaries that we are, we're basically making sure that we are up to speed. We have the latest technology and that we're ready to strike when we need to. I think this is more noise than actual substance on this. I think it just sends a message. And mind you, Dr. Gina, this was about 30 minutes before he met with the president of China. So maybe that sent a little subtle message in terms of how these negotiations should go. But nevertheless, President Trump obviously talking about nuclear testing, and let's just hope that we don't ever get to actually ever use those nuclear weapons.
Yeah, and even in his post, President Trump said this isn't where he wanted to go, and he talked about kind of the destructive nature of nuclear weapons. Is the White House being a bit more specific or talking at all about how these tests potentially would look? I was talking with Senator Ron Johnson yesterday of Wisconsin, and even he was saying, yeah, I have no idea how this would look or how we would go about doing this, if these would be underground tests or otherwise. Any idea, any word from the White House this morning specific to how this testing would potentially look?
No, they haven't, Terrence. That's a great question. And I've kind of dug around to see exactly what they meant by that post. And I think each response from the White House has been, we're just going to let president's words speak for itself. They're not really going into detail, which makes me think in a way this might have been more of a negotiation tactic before he met with China versus a legitimate reason to test our nuclear weapons. So we have more than anybody. So I would imagine they work. And I think at this point to undergo testing, I don't know if it's needed, but look, the president's going to do what he thinks is best.
For sure. Brian Glenn, great to have you on a Friday.
Thanks, guys.
Actually, now that I think about it, great to have you Monday through Friday. Thank you so
There
much.
you go.
Have a good weekend, Brian.
So we'll see you back on Monday. Thank you.
Right. All right, coming up. Ooh, scary music. Is Biden coming up next? More revelations on Jack Smith. Oh, okay, now I get the scary music. And the Biden-era Arctic frost investigation. It's all scary, and it's after the break. We're going to show you why the former special counsel sought records on more than 400 Republican figures and groups. Stay with us. You hear that, Jack?